So the reason I'm making this video is because I happened to be listening to the Low Post podcast last week, where Zach Lowe happened to mention that in talking to people around the NBA, a lot of those people are off on the Milwaukee Bucks. And it got me thinking, like, is the consensus around the league that the Bucks aren't legitimate contenders? Like, is the consensus that they're just like a notch below everyone else? Like, that got me kind of thinking, and I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, on the one hand, I kind of get it, because if you look at the state of the East, Boston, obviously the defending champs, the Knicks are going to get back Julius Randle, they added Mikal Bridges, Philly added Paul George. It feels like a lot of teams sort of like jump them in the hierarchy. And then if you look at Milwaukee, you have Chris Middleton, who just turned 33, and he's had double ankle surgery this summer. That's on top of all the other injuries he's had the last few years. Damian Lillard just turned 34, coming off a down year. Brook Lopez will be 37 by the time the playoffs start. Obviously, last year as a whole for the Bucks was very chaotic. There was a lot of moving parts, mid-season head coaching change. Damian Lillard didn't play so well, Giannis injury, losing the first round, all that stuff. So I kind of get why there isn't so much optimism around the Bucks, but at the same time, I think that with all the stuff that we shouldn't like about them, I think has clouded what there is still to really like about the Bucks. And I think it starts with Giannis. I think, like, I don't know if this is a hot take, but I think Giannis has sort of become underrated in a sense. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he's missed most of the last two playoffs with injury. He got injured in game 1 against Miami. I think missed the next 2 games, came back, didn't really look the same, and then missed the entire series against Indiana. And I think that, along with like naturally how we start to take the best players in the game for granted, it kind of makes you forget, like, this dude is still, I think, one of the 3 best players in the NBA, no worse than top 5. And so like you have a top 5 player in the NBA, one of the 2 best two-way players in the game. Like, that's a great starting point for any team. Obviously, you just got to assume that he stays healthy come playoff time, but like hopefully, I mean, good God, I hope third time's the charm with that. So you have him. Damian Lillard obviously didn't have a great season last year, first year in Milwaukee, but I look, to his credit, he fully admitted that he just did not come into last season in the best headspace, didn't come into last season in the best shape physically. I think the trade from Portland to Milwaukee after all those years with the Blazers definitely rattled him. I don't think he was settled. I don't think he was comfortable. I also don't think I think he said like he didn't expect to go to Milwaukee. I think he was going through a divorce last summer. Like, there was just so much going on with him. And so I do think that now, settled in Milwaukee now, hopefully his personal life is better. You assume he's going to come into the season in better shape. Year 2, playing along these guys, playing alongside Giannis, where like obviously they talked about how like playing with a guy like the caliber of the other person, like it's tough. It's an adjustment. We've seen that time and time again with dynamic duos who start playing together. It's a tough adjustment. So like you figure like with all the chaos of last year, year 2 is going to be a lot more stable for Lillard, and therefore he's going to produce at the level closer to what we've become accustomed to from him. Doc Rivers, look, I know there's every reason to clown Doc Rivers, and I totally get it, and I'm not going to try and stop you from doing that. But I do think like when he complained about coming into the Bucks midseason about how difficult that is, like, he wasn't wrong. It is difficult to come into a new team and try and implement your system and implement your philosophies and what you want to do in the game plan and all that stuff. So do I think Doc Rivers is a great coach? Do I think he's the head coach the Bucks need? I don't fully know, but I do know that a full offseason and a full training camp to implement what he wants to do on both ends is going to make the Bucks look so much better. So they have that. The Bucks didn't obviously make a lot of splashy additions this summer, not a Mikal Bridges, not a Paul George, but I really liked what they did this summer. Gary Trent Jr., that was a steal of a contract for 1 year. To bring that guy in, great 3-and-D guy. Taurean Prince, similar thing, 3-and-D guy, shot really well with the Lakers last year. DeLon Wright, I think, is one of the more underrated on-ball perimeter defenders. And so when you think about the Bucks last year and how one of their biggest issues was depth, to now add in these 3 guys who can, in theory, give you quality minutes and who are all positives at the defensive end, which was also an issue last year when you had guys like Malik Beasley and Pat Bev, who were not so great defensively. To bring in those 3 guys, I think, is a great plus. So you look at all this stuff that they still have. And so, look, if you want to tell me, hey, I think the Celtics are better, I think the Knicks are better, I think the Sixers are better, I'm not going to argue with you, because those teams, I think, are coming off better, more notable, obviously the Celtics and Knicks had great seasons, Philly made the big addition. So if you want to say those teams are better, or you're more optimistic about those teams, I'm not going to argue with you. But I just think, like, as chaotic of a season as Milwaukee had last year, I think there's going to be way more stability and just way more productivity this season. And I think that's a reason to keep believing in this team as Again, okay, if you don't want to say they're legitimate contenders, sure, but like I still think they're going to be in the thick of things in the Eastern Conference playoff picture, and I'm excited to see that play out because I do believe in the stability that they're going to have this year, where there was a lot of chaos and a lot of change, and there's a lot of like new experiences, like for a guy like Lillard. And so I think heading into year 2 of the Lillard Giannis era, I guess if that's what you want to call it, Doc Rivers gets a full offseason, new pieces. Hopefully Middleton and Lopez will stay healthy and be able to contribute at a solid enough level. You put all of that together, and I do think Milwaukee should still be considered a force to reckon with in the Eastern Conference playoff picture and in the championship conversation as a whole.